There's this girl going viral on the internet right now because she flew all the way out to Scotland for one of her friend's weddings just to find out that she wasn't invited to eat dinner with all of the other wedding guests. For the sake of the story, we're gonna call our main character Amy. So Amy and her other friend Jill are invited to one of their friends' weddings in Scotland. And so they decide to book all of their travel arrangements together and go together all the way to Scotland for their friend's wedding. When they get to Scotland, they go to the bed and breakfast that they booked. It's run by this little sweet lady, and she offers to drive them to the wedding the next day. The day of the wedding, the bed and breakfast lady drives them to the ceremony. The ceremony's beautiful as expected. And after the ceremony, they remind everybody to go out to this other venue for the reception dinner. Amy and Jill call the bed and breakfast lady and ask if she can transport them over to the dinner. When they arrive for the dinner, they notice that there are seating charts at the entrance. So they're looking at the seating chart, trying to find their names on it to figure out where they need to sit. All of a sudden, the security person walks up and asks them to see their invitation. And they traveled a long way, so they didn't think to bring their invitation. So they tell the security officer their name, Amy and Jill. He looks at the list and says, you're not on the dinner list. I do see you as a wedding guest, but you weren't invited to the dinner. Amy and Jill are super confused. They're like, why would we not be invited to the dinner, but just the ceremony? I mean, after all, we flew all the way to Scotland for this. The security guy lets them know that while they're not invited to the dinner, they can come back in an hour when the dinner's over to come dance and enjoy cocktails. I forgot to mention the security guy also mentioned to Amy and Jill that at the very bottom of their invitation in small font, it indicated if they were a dinner guest or not. And Amy and Jill did not see this on the invitation because it was in small font at the bottom. Amy and Jill are pretty upset because they're in the middle of a place that they don't know anything about, Scotland, and they now have to figure out what they're gonna do for dinner. And it's not like they could just walk down the street and go eat dinner somewhere else. They would have to travel to wherever they're gonna now have to eat dinner. Not to mention, their ride is the bed and breakfast lady, and they did not tell the bed and breakfast lady that they would need another ride in between all of these things just to eat dinner. They decide, you know what, it's stupid for us to go eat dinner and then come back, so they decide to just call the bed and breakfast lady and get picked up and not come back. I typically don't talk about a wedding that I've recently photographed, but I have to talk about the wedding that I photographed tonight. Okay, immediately when I walk in tonight to photograph the wedding, the vibes are off. Normally, brides are very involved in their weddings, and they were very involved in the planning. And so they know everything, and they're kind of my go-to person whenever I have a question. Not tonight's bride. She kind of had this like attitude of like, I just want to get this over with. She didn't know where anything was when I would ask her. She didn't know the order of the reception. She was just very like aloof and unaware. However, there was this other woman, and I think she had something to do with the church. It kind of felt like it was her wedding. Like she had planned the entire thing. And so it quickly had to shift from asking the bride questions to just asking this random woman that I think was involved in the church. So that was the first weird thing. Second weird thing is normally brides are either excited or nervous on their wedding day or a combination. This bride was neither of those things. The closest emotion I can describe her as being is sad or empty, which I have never seen before on a wedding day. So it kind of had some flags going off for me. Now the groom, he felt pretty normal. He seemed eager to get married. He just kind of seemed like a normal groom. Fast forward to the ceremony, and I'm standing up front near the groom so I can get his reaction, and then I can get the bride walking down the aisle. The first thing I notice is the bride is walking herself down the aisle. So I'm not sure where the dad is or what has happened to her father, but he was not walking her down the aisle. Middle of the aisle, she just stops. Dead in her tracks, stops in the middle of the aisle. Everybody starts looking around. It's super awkward and uncomfortable. I'm sitting here wondering if this is like part of the ceremony. Like maybe they're gonna say a prayer before she gets to the end. I don't know. The groom is looking at her, like willing her to just finish walking down the aisle. Like he just has this look like, don't embarrass me. And she's standing there and she just looks like she's having this internal battle. So immediately I'm worried about her. That is until a random dude shows up, right? He shows up and says he will be taking her. As you can imagine, the groom was not happy to hear this. I've never seen this in my career, so I'm not really sure what to do. I'm the photographer, right? But do I photograph something like that? So anyways, the guy takes the bride and no more wedding. That was it.
Summarizing all 50 parts of the Risa Tisa Who the F Did I Marry videos in one singular part, let's flow. Risa Tisa and her ex-husband, who she calls Legion, met in March 2020, right before COVID, on 2 different dating apps, which was the first red flag. One was his real name, one was a nickname. They hung out a ton, and when COVID hit, they decided to quarantine at her house, which she agreed was a little fast. Not long after, she gets pregnant, they decide they need to get married. During all of this, they decide they want to buy a house. He can't show proof of funds. Unfortunately, she miscarries the child, and he doesn't even go with her to the surgery and says he has an important meeting for work. Allegedly, at this time, he works as a VP for a condiment company and leaves the house at 6:15 a.m. every morning and comes home at 3:34 p.m. Eventually, they continue the house search and she wants to see his accounts. He shows her a Qais savings account and a Qais checking account where he has money in it, but says he also has money from playing arena football in a U.S. bank account and an offshore account. Next on the list of things that started giving her pause was a car. She wants this dark blue BMW with cognac interior. He doesn't end up getting it for her, but he does buy a BMW, which he says is his work car that he keeps at some random building that he says the condiment company owns. Some other sketchy stuff happens. They get married January 2021. 2 weeks later, flips his vibe. Starts acting weird, accusing her of cheating, makes this some story that her ex showed up in a Dodge Charger at their house, but she confirms it's a lie because they have a Ring camera. But he does little things to keep her around, like printing out an itinerary for a trip on her dream vacation to London with flights and all that jazz. They try to get another house, third time, with a different realtor, this girl named Amber, and basically they pause it because he can't show the proof of funds, and this woman, Amber, basically gives her like this aha moment where she's like, you can either buy the house with him or I got you if you want to do it by yourself. And she's like, by myself is probably a better idea. Tons of other small things that happen but are important. They do marriage counseling with a pastor, but she also like catches him doing Facebook Messenger with other women that he of course talks himself out of, but he moves into the guest room. She decides to pursue a new job opportunity and needs to put his social security number on the application. The one he begrudgingly gives her is basically different than the one that's on their marriage license. She looks at both. One has no records. One is completely different than what he said he did, which was live in California and have an ex-wife there. Through all this, he gets this knee injury at work, never gets it checked out. It turns into this debilitating injury where he's basically bedridden and he just brushes it off and says it's like an old football injury. One day he calls her and says the stepdaughter from his California marriage had passed away and they need to give $2,000 towards a funeral. Of course, she says yes, she's human. She does some more sleuthing and finds out basically that this California marriage actually happened in Georgia and he basically lied about the whole story and she was the one who divorced him and he couldn't even pay for the divorce fees. Finds the ex's phone number, ends up calling her, and basically the ex is like, if you're calling me, I know it's bad, don't believe the thing he says, everything he is a lie. They have a good conversation, she keeps most of it to herself. Continuing her sleuthing, she finds his mom's obituary where she learns 2 more things. 1, he has another ex-wife that he never talked about, and 2, the 2 sisters he claims to have don't exist. In the midst of this, he changes jobs, he's bedridden, and basically he's just sitting there slugging Powerade every day. One day, she turns on his old work phone and finds texts and confirmations that he's been seeing a sex worker. Obviously, it doesn't even surprise her at this point. One thing leads to another where June 2021, on his birthday, she confronts him in bed where he had been peeing in those Powerade bottles, which is disgusting. They have a huge blow up, they're on the phone with family members. She kicks him out, he leaves with 2 bags of clothes. Eventually, they're texting about the divorce. She goes to file, and his cousin calls her and is like, who are you? What's going on? What's happening with this divorce? He just showed up and we haven't talked to him in years. Basically, she confirms all this stuff is completely made up that he's been saying, and she's like, he's been lying since he was little. I'll get you in touch with his brother so you can like work this out. She requests to meet Legion at a UPS so they can do the signature for the divorce papers. He shows up, same clothes, has basically been living out of his car, smells, and is even smaller than he was before. In the conversation with the cousin, she basically finds out that he has a twin, and that's basically who he's been pretending to be with the VP title, the luxury car, the family house, and she's like spiraling. She ends up calling the brother, they talk, he basically said, I haven't spoken to him in 5 years, and she's like, what? Every single morning we woke up and he was on the phone with you and we would like be talking to you, and basically it turns out he was talking to himself the entire time. The brother confirms that basically everything he said about his family he made up, including like where his parents are, how they passed, what siblings he has, all this is insane. And he tells her that he has a criminal record. Then she starts doing reverse Google image searches on all these things that she found on his work phone, which were the Chase bank account statements and the BMW and all this stuff. And she basically finds out that he just found them on Google. When all this happens, his aunt calls her and is like, what's going on? He's trying to ask me for financial help. And she's like, oh yeah, we got a divorce. We tell her, and she's like, oh, but what happened to the baby? She's like, we don't have a baby. And she's like, no, what? He's been coming to Augusta for months telling me he's going to bring the little boy and that you guys are getting divorced and he's bringing the little boy with him. And she's like, that's not true. Eventually, she looks up his criminal records, finds out he's gotten arrested for things like suspended license, trespassing, but the most important one to her was that he got arrested for impersonation of an officer. Now we're in August 2021. He's basically disappeared. She can't find anything about him and basically starts reaching out to every single person on Facebook he's ever mentioned to try to figure out where he might be. They all want nothing to do with him. She finds out that he checked himself into a hospital for 2 weeks so he could have a bed, ends up calling her 30 times a day, every hour of the day, and she basically calls the police and is like, he's stalking me, he's harassing me. The police say there's a warrant out for his arrest. When he shows up, call us and we will come and arrest him. That's what they do. She's watching from a car across the street. They arrest him. He gets out of the car, same clothes, still living in his car, even smaller. She said he was a 3X, now he's a medium, and basically he peacefully gets arrested, but he wants to talk to her. They exchange a few words while the police officer is there with the body cam, and she's basically like, I never want to see you again. She gets the letter that the divorce is finalized. She's crying with relief. She also donates all this stuff to a domestic violence shelter and calls the car to get it repossessed. And she's like, I'm out of here. I'm moving. This is it. He's done. He's in jail. It's good. She's scheduled to move on August 31st, and his court session on August 29th, 2 days before, they find out the warrant's expired and he's getting released on the 30th. She goes to stay with her aunt on the 30th, so there's no contention there. She basically wakes up, moves within 2 hours, boom, done, doesn't hear from him until December 2022, 5 months later. She's out from work from COVID, and basically he calls work trying to find her, and she sends him one last message and is like, if you ever try to contact me again, I will get a restraining order, and she never heard from him again.
First of all, I need to give you a little backstory. So let me just point this out, how hard it can be to kind of like try to find friends in your adult years. Talking to Sam about this, it's like most of the friends that I have in my life are friends that became friends very situationally. My friends growing up were the friends that I went to school with, the friends that I went to dance with. It was very like natural to be friends with those people because I was around them all the time. And then going into my adult years, it's like most of my friends were the people that I work with or my family because I'm around them and it's like, it's a natural thing. But as I've gotten older, I've really like wanted to branch out and be like, I want to find friends, more adult friends, especially adult girlfriends. So I have been doing that a little bit more and it's been so much fun and I found some really fun people that I love spending time with. But I will say, like, not something that I'm like super great at. I'm totally comfortable, confident, meeting new people, keeping conversations. Like, I'm very comfortable in those situations of like being around people I don't know. But like the actually securing a new friendship with somebody I've never met before is like really hard for me. Like, I feel like it kind of takes me out of my comfort zone a little bit. A lot of it is just me worrying that I'm gonna be like trying too hard with somebody who doesn't really want to be my friend, and I'm just like, I just feel like it's something that I'm getting used to and trying to work on. Like I said, I've been branching out a lot and it's been super fun, and this is where the story begins. So I'm not going to use real names, so I'm going to give you names. So my friend's name, we're going to say her name is Jessica, okay? And her husband's name is Brad. We're going to say Brad. Me and my new friend Jessica have been hanging out a couple times. She's really awesome. I like her a lot. I've heard about her husband, Brad. She's told me about Brad, but I've never met him. One night, she invites me and Sam to go on a double date night with her and her husband. I tell Sam, now, also another backstory. I'm notorious in my family, not just with Sam, but also like my siblings and my parents, is my family has always made fun of me when I like say that I have friends. Like, they always tease me. They're like, you don't have friends. And it's just like this ongoing joke. That's a story for another time. But basically, ever since I've told Sam about Jessica, my friend, he's just kind of teased me. He's like, oh my gosh, you have a friend? Like, he just has been teasing me. Same with my family. So when I tell Sam about the double date, he starts just ramping up the teasing and the joke. He's like, no. He's like, are you nervous? Like, what are you gonna say? Like, really ramping it up all day, teasing me. Just like, yeah. Which, such a punk, but like I expected. I'm going to dinner, get there, we arrive, I see my friend Jessica, she's there first, we're talking, I introduce her to Sam, and then her husband, Brad, comes walking in. And, oh my gosh, first of all, I'm always that awkward person that it's like when you meet somebody, I'm always going in for the hug. But like sometimes I'll see the hand go out and for some reason I still go for a hug. Like I'm just like, so I see the hand, but I'm already halfway to a hug. So I go in, I give Brad a hug. And what do I say? What words come out of my mouth? instead of saying what a normal person would say, like, hi, I'm Lindsay, what do I say? I say, hi, I'm Brad. And I introduce myself to him using his name. In that moment, I froze. I was like, I mean, I'm not Brad, you're Brad. I'm Lindsay, nice to meet you. I tried to backpedal so hard, but what had been said had already been said. And the best was his face was kind of like, like why? Why would I introduce myself to somebody I've never met using their name? That's so embarrassing. So then we were just like kind of laughed. Like, of course we laughed at it. It's not like he was like, he like laughed at it and he didn't make me feel stupid about it or anything, but like I felt stupid. The best was those words come out of my mouth and the first thing I did is look at Sam. I was like, did you hear that? And Sam's looking at me and he was like, And that was the worst part, is he'd been teasing me. And then I look at him and he's just like, now, this is the beginning of the date night. And Sam and I, then we go in, we sit down. We didn't have a chance to like talk about it, laugh about it. So the entire dinner, there'd be moments throughout the dinner where I would just remember it and I'd have to literally hold myself back from laughing. Like, I can't look at Sam, otherwise I will die. We get in the car and Sam literally, the first thing he says, he looks at me, he's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, shut up. I don't want to hear it. We laughed for literally like 45 minutes straight. I called my family, I told all my sisters, everybody laughed at me. Like, it was just such a classic Lindsay move. Not only did I bypass the handshake and go in for the hug, I introduced myself as his name. It still haunts me, honestly. Good news is I still have my friend. They didn't think it was that weird, obviously. And we've now laughed at it since, so that's good.
This might be one of the more like fucked up stories I've ever told. It all starts because my mother and I are just delusional ass bitches. Ever since I was young, my mom had always been, she always has this thing where she's like, I just have a death feeling. So like when she gets the death feeling, that means she feels that someone's going to pass. She's like, your grandma had it, so many people had it. It's just like one of those things. And normally every time she has that feeling, someone passes away. So growing up, my mom would have these death feelings and every time she had it, it would come true. So everyone else in my family would be like, no, like that's not it, da-da-da, like it's a coincidence. But I'm like, no, my mother's a psychic. My mother's a woman of the psychic world and I believe everything she says. I'm an intuitive ass bitch. Like, I'm a Cancer, I'm intuitive, and I have a weird intuition though. Like, I know whenever the fuck my friends are texting their ex-boyfriends because like I could just feel it. I'll text them and I'll be like, you're talking to Robert's bitch ass again. Like, I sent it. And they're like, okay, how did you know that? Like, how did you know that? Did you fucking tap my phone? I'm like, no, I just get like a weird intuition feeling. I'm like, they're speaking again. Like, I just know that they're communicating. So this is gonna sound really fucked up, but I've had a lot of people in my life pass. So me and my family talk about death pretty openly. Like, it's not a touchy or like taboo subject. My mother calls me about a month ago and she's like, Liv, I'm having the death feeling again. I feel as if someone's gonna get really injured in a car accident. Like, I just feel it. My mom's like, I don't know if it's gonna be a fatal car accident, but I just feel it. Like, there's something is going to happen. I'm like, Mom, that is so crazy you say that because I've always thought my oldest sister, something was gonna happen in a car accident with her at 27 years old. Since I was like a young girl, I was like, I don't know. I just feel like something's really gonna happen to her in a car accident. My mom would actually get so fucking mad at me. She'd be like, stop saying that about your older sister. And I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like something's gonna happen. I don't know what the fuck it is. And I just really thought I was like connected so well with my intuition. Duh. I'm like, Mom, well, I think your like little intuition about like the car thing might be Kay. Like, I've always thought something weird was gonna happen with her when she was 27. My mom and I are eating that shit up because we just think we're two psychic girlies who just are like predicting something. And my mom's like, I don't think it's her. Like, normally when I get this feeling, it's about someone I don't really know that well. I'm like, I don't know. I've always just had that feeling about her. Like, I don't know why. I can tell this story because today is her 28th birthday. Mom and I are just like going back and forth and being like, okay, like our intuitions, like what is it? What is yours saying? What is mine saying? Like, whatever. We can't predict it. You can't control anything. So it's just like, we're just having our little intuition moment and that's that. So then I start being really,
being really, really nice to my oldest sister. Mind you, my mom is like, don't tell Sissy. And of course, I tell Sissy. Like, Sissy, just so you know, my intuition's saying some things about Kay. Like, just so you know. And so then we're in a family group chat. I start being overly nice to her, and I'm like, and then my OCD kicks in. I'm like, love you. Like, I love you so much. And like, I don't normally speak to her like that. She's like, why the fuck are you acting like that? Like, why? And then my mom is also like, we love you so dearly. Like, I just love you so much. Like, I'm really like, I love you. Sissy fucking chimes in on this bitch. And Sissy's like, no, they just like, they're acting that way because they think something's gonna happen to you. And I'm like, oh my God, Sissy, like, rule number one of like intuition is like, don't fucking tell the person. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? My mom's pissed at me in the group chat, and she's like, why would you tell Sissy? I told you not to tell Sissy. I told you not to fucking tell Sissy because she acts like this. And I'm like, it just slipped. My oldest sister's over there like, what the fuck is gonna happen to me? Like, what do you think is gonna happen to me? Like, what is wrong with you two? And I'm just like, love you dearly. She's like, who the fuck does that? Like, who the fuck just says that or thinks that? And I was like, listen, you know what? Love you. Sissy's like in the group chat, like, relax, Kay. Like, they're just acting crazy again. They're just having a moment. And my mom's like, I never thought it was gonna be you. Like, Livy convinced me that it was you. I'm like, fuck, I did do that. Like, I trust my intuition. I just like trust it. And mind you, it kept coming back to like the car thing. And Sissy was like, well, Kaylee's a horrible fucking driver, so maybe that's what your intuition is telling you. And Kaylee's in the chat like, okay, what the fuck? Of course, Kaylee's not in the best mood because she's like, you literally are convincing me something bad is gonna happen to me just because like your intuition is telling you that. And I'm like, girl, it ain't ever been wrong. It's never been wrong. Well, it does turn out that my intuition was wrong. That like I just straight up convinced everybody of this just because I was like, Sissy, I was wrong. And Sissy's like, I knew you were fucking wrong, bitch. It turns out the death feeling that my mother was having was for someone completely different. Like, my mom called me one day and she's like, nope, there was an accident. There was an accident. I told you there was one. I was like, fatal. She's like, nope, not at all. And I was like, oh, so it's not Kaylee. Listen, call me crazy. Call me whatever the fuck you want to call me. My intuition's normally right, okay? My intuition's normally correct. But I'm starting to think like maybe it had a little bit of fear. Maybe it was a little bit of anxiety instead of intuition. I'm still trying to understand the both. But all is well, and my mom and I are just like a little bit delulu. Imagine I go out like this. Maybe I should just start a new series like Intuition, or am I fucking crazy?
Alright guys, today I have a story for you about Majnoon Layla, or Layla's crazy lover. His name is Qais ibn al-Maluh. So back in the day, Layla and Qais used to live in the same neighborhood, and they used to play with each other every day. They were just little kids, you know. They might have had a little innocent, pure crush on each other, but they were just little kids. There was no problem. Life was good. Okay, until Layla got older, and her parents were like, Layla, you're a grown woman now. You can't be playing with boys in the street. And obviously Qais got older as well, but to him it didn't make sense. Like every day without Layla, it felt like something is missing in his day. Like I wanna go back to the old days where I used to play with you in the street and nothing was wrong. So Qais did not want to give up on that. So he kept going to her house every day, and he just screams, Ya Layla, Ya Layla, and no one would answer. And her parents were like, you're not answering, you're not going out. And Qais wrote this little line. He said, فؤادي بين أضلع غريب ينادي من يحبه فلا يجيب. I'm calling my lover, like my heart is calling my lover, and my lover is not responding. This is where he noticed, like, yep, I like this girl. Like I can't live without her. I want to see her. So he said, I'll marry her. That way I get to spend the rest of my life with her. No one can say anything to me. So he goes to her dad and he goes, I'm in love with your daughter. I want to marry her. And the dad, he asks for like a crazy amount of money for her mahr. It doesn't specify how much, but it says like Qais doesn't have 1% of that. So does Qais give up and say, never mind, like I don't want her no more? Of course not. Otherwise it wouldn't be the story we want. Qais starts traveling around the country, you know. He's doing trading. He's doing any job he could to gather money. He's working his butt off, you know. And every time he felt like giving up, or he felt like he was overwhelmed with work, he would motivate himself by thinking about Layla. And he would say, أحبك حبا قد تمكن بالحشا له بين جلدي والعظام دبيب. Like your love is inside my bones and my skin. Like every time I want to give up, I just think about you. After years of working, Qais gets the money that he wants, and he's running back to his neighborhood. I got your mahr, Layla. Like Layla, I have enough money to marry you. And he comes back and he sees Layla, right? But this time it wasn't the same Layla that he left off. He saw henna on her hands. And in the Arabic tradition, when a woman gets married, like the night before she gets married, she has a henna, like she starts putting henna on her hands. And Qais said, ولما تلاقينا على سفح رامة وجدت بنان العامرية أحمرا فقلت غضبت الكف بعد فراقنا. When we met on that top of the hill and I saw your fingers are red, are you celebrating us falling apart? And she responded to him, Layla, she goes, معاذ الله ذلك ما جرى ولكنني لما وجدتك راحلا بكيت دما حتى بللت بها الثرى مسحت بأطراف البنان أدمعي فصار خطابا باليدين كما ترى. She said, when you left, I thought you were gone forever, and I started crying blood, like my tears were blood. And when I took my hands to wipe off my tears that are blood, they became red. Pretty much she's spitting bars here. She's saying like, the reason they're red is not because of the henna. Like I was kind of like, I thought you were gone. Like you're never coming back. And Qais had to accept his fate, and he was really depressed to the point where he said, قربوا لي النحش واستغفروا لي. Like bring the coffin closer to me and ask God to forgive me for like I want to die. Like I don't want to be alive anymore. Every night he would go to Layla's house and he would kiss the walls from the outside. And he said, أمر على ديار ليلى أقبل ذا الجدار وذا الجدار وما حب الديار شغفنا قلبي ولكن صاحب من سكن الديار. Basically, like, I'm not in love with the house, I'm in love with the person that's inside of the house, but since I can't touch them or get near them, I'm just gonna kiss the wall. And in the morning, he would dehydrate himself on purpose. Like, he would go in the middle of the desert where it's really hot and not drink water and stay there for a long time so he can pass out, so he can dream about her, so he can, like, see an imaginary picture of her. And he said, إني لا أستخشي وما بي بنحسة لعل خيال منك يلقى خيالي. There's a time where he actually got himself to like be really dizzy, where he saw like an imaginary Layla and she was like walking, and he starts chasing her around like the whole city. And he was walking and chasing her, and he saw, well, he didn't see them, but there was a group of people praying, and he literally walks past them as they're not there. And when he finally realizes that it's not Layla and it's just an imaginary Layla, when he goes back on his way back, all the people that were praying, they ask him, they're like, are you okay? Like, you just saw us pray. Like, why didn't you not join us? And he goes, I did not see you guys. And they're like, what do you mean you did not see us? And he was like, I was chasing Layla. And they're like, who's Layla? And he goes, you know what? If you guys loved God as much as I loved Layla, maybe you don't have seen me either. You would have been focused on your prayer. Just like how I was focused on her, you would have been focused on your prayer. You didn't even notice me. And that's when the people were like, all right, this guy's crazy. Like, he is not normal. And his dad saw that, and he saw how like crazy Qais was, so he took him to Hajj. He took him to Mecca. And his dad will go around to all the people in Mecca, and he would say, please make dua for my son. Like, he's crazy about this girl. Just like make dua that he forgives her. And Qais, every time his dad goes to somebody, Qais would come afterwards. And he goes, don't listen to him. Make dua that I never forget about her. Make dua that I always love her forever. And Qais would say, يا رب لا تسلبني حبها أبدا ويرحم الله عبدا قال آمين. Like, God, please never like take my love for her away from me, and may you have mercy on anyone who says amen. And like, he says that out loud, and everyone around him says amen, amen, amen. And his dad was like, all right, this is enough. Like, he forcefully took him to the point where his dad started beating Qais, and he took him back home. And all of his family, they're like, what's wrong with you? Like, wake up, like, you deserve better. Like, you can do better for yourself. Layla's not even that pretty. Like, she's short. Like, no, like, you can do better than that. And he goes, يقول لي الوشون ليلى قصيرة فليت ذراع عرض ليلى وطولها. They're like, if he's like, if Layla is an arm, if she's as tall and wide as an arm, I still want her. It doesn't matter how tall she is, how wide she is, I want her. And then he decided to go to her husband, and he goes, did you hug and kiss Layla this morning? Like, why are you out here? Why are you spending time with your friends? Like, if I was in your position, I would be spending time with Layla all the time. He's like, did you hug and kiss Layla this morning? And her husband, like, Layla's husband saw that Qais is crazy. He didn't, like, mind what he said. And he goes, you know what? In fact, I did do that this morning. And that's when Qais was like, you know what? Like, it's time to move on. Like, it's time. I need to take care of myself. Like, my life is destroyed. Years go by, and he hears that Layla's sick, like, really sick. And he starts crying again. And he goes, ألست وعدتني يا قلب أني إذا ما تبت عن ليلى تتوب فها أنا تائب عن حب ليلى فما لك كلما ذكرت تذوب. He's like, my heart, you promised me that if I wanted to forget her, you would help me forget her. But why is it that every time her name is mentioned, you melt? And then Layla dies. And that's when Qais like is devastated. So he goes to her grave, and he just sits there and stays there. No food, like he doesn't leave, and he just stays by her grave until people found him dead. People saw this paper next to him that said, وَقَدْ يَجْمَعُ اللَّهُ الشَّتَاتَيْنِ بَعْدَمَا ظُنَّانِ كُلَّ الظَّنِّ أَنْ لَا تَلَاقِيَا. And they buried him right next to her. So he never got to be with her in life, but they were buried right next to each other.